Hi guys, welcome to Big Dell's tips for the grand final preview. But before we do that, let's go back and check out sudden death. Well, there were some teams who got eliminated, or one team in particular, and let's just say the Melbourne Storm. They were humming along just nicely, but you know what? They ran into the Panthers, and the Panthers, they were on. Their defence has been great. But before that, we'll go back to Friday night. Friday night football, the Rabbitohs versus the Eagles. I got to do this game for Triple M. I really enjoyed this game from the start because it was a war of attrition early. There wasn't much happening for Manly, but South made it happen. Cody Walker was just brilliant. The way that he played, on the edge, he linked up well, but young Blake Taaffe at fullback, I think he's had 7 or 8 games in first grade. I think one of the most inexperienced players to go through to a grand final. But the way they played last week, the Bunnies, they deserve to be favourites for the grand final. We'll get to that later on, but Manly have done so well to get to where they've got. Top 4, they didn't beat too many top 4 sides, and you can see they struggle. When the Bunnies went up the intensity, they couldn't go with them. So well done to young Blake Taaffe. He stepped up there. Adam Reynolds had a groin injury. I think you heard it in the captain's run. At the start of the game, he was just nursing it through. He wasn't even kicking. So I think for the Bunnies to have a plan B to do what they were doing. Obviously, they won 36-16. Tom Trbojevic, he couldn't get into the game. Everything that Tommy tried, the Bunnies were in their face. Their defence was so good. And that's what Wayne Bennett's good at. He's right at getting the defence right around the finals time. I think he's always said, if you get your defence right, the attack will come. The attack certainly came. 36 points to 16. They were no chance to Seagulls. Even that second half, the harder they tried, the worse they got. So well done to them. And then this is the game. I could not believe this. I was sitting at home. I was watching this. I'm thinking, it's going to be a Melbourne Storm South Grand Final. Bellamy versus Bennett. But you know what? This is what finals do. They throw up different things, and this is what happened. Start of the game, unbelievable play from Nathan Cleary. He goes to dummy half, cross kicks it to that man Crichton. Crichton takes it inches from the sideline, and he scores that try. I think I said this before. You've got to take Storm out of their comfort zone and turn to beat them. So then that upset their momentum, and they didn't get a good start either because Brandon Smith, obviously head knock, he didn't come back, and Christian Welsh. So their rotation wasn't great. But the Panthers did what they had to do. Crichton obviously scored his try. Brian To'o, he not only carried the ball for 200 metres, but he gave them that good go forward. So well done to him and Nathan Cleary. If Nathan Cleary doesn't play, they don't win, simple as that. No matter what they did, the Melbourne Storm, they couldn't find a way to win the game. They did get a try in the second half to Ryan Pappenhausen off a Cameron Munster kick. So when the Storm are scoring off kicks, you know your defence is pretty good. So well done to the Panthers there, and the Panthers, they're battered and bruised, but they're going to a grand final for the second year in a row, and there's no Melbourne Storm. So you can't bring back last year, but I'm pretty sure they're happy they've sent Melbourne packing this year because everyone had Melbourne winning the grand final, especially me. Well, we know the Dell Awards were presented on Monday night, and look, there's no surprise here. The team, it was a very good side, and the players that were picked in there, there were some controversial decisions, but look, for me, I just think Tom Trbojevic, he was head and shoulders above anyone. I think he pulled some of the most points throughout the Dally M's. So the way that he played, he didn't play that many games. I think he only played 15 or 16 games, so Tommy Trbojevic, well done to him. So we'll start at fullback. There were some really good fullbacks this year. Obviously, young Reece Walsh had played some good football there. And then you got like Tommy Turbo, who was just setting tries up, who was scoring tries, but he added so much. But James Tedesco, we saw James Tedesco. He got Captain of the Year because the Roosters. Mate, there was like reserve grade players there, and even players, probably some younger players coming in there. So I can understand why Tedesco was in the mix as well. But Tommy Trbojevic, he was head and shoulders above anyone, as I said before. The way that he played, he's such a humble young man, and he was just destroying teams. Obviously, we saw Melbourne shut him down, and then obviously, South had the blueprint to shut him down as well. For me, Manly, they got to get a plan B and plan C. They can't just depend on Turbo. Ruben Garrick on the wings with Brian To'o. Well, look, To'o's had a marvellous season. Like, there's so many good wingers in and around our game at the moment, You talk about Alex Johnston, Mate, he was in my team of the year last week for Triple M. I picked him because I think he scored 29 or 30 tries this year, and he just knows how to finish. But, Brian To'o, it's been a wonderful year for him. It's been a big rise. State of Origin this year, grand final last year. carries the ball at least 20 to 25 times a game, averages 220, 250 metres, really good strike player. And that's, when he's playing well, the Panthers are always a big chance. So there's no surprise last week that he comes back into the team and the Panthers get that go forward from his strong carries. And also, to end it off, he scored a try. So really good play there from Brian To'o, and you can just see his energy is so infectious in that team. That's why the boys like playing with him. He's a very handy player. On the other wing, obviously, Reuben Garrick. I said this before. Reuben Garrick, there's some really good wingers in and around our game. This young kid has come from nowhere. Jason Saab's had a good year this year, and when we look at players like Reuben Garrick and what he brings, he's just a really good finisher, and I think he's tradesman-like. You don't have to be the fastest or the flashiest winger, but sometimes you have to get the job done. Obviously, point-scoring record, he nailed it this year. So his standard of play this year was unbelievable. So well done to him, and I think that's kudos to Manly and the way they're bringing these young blokes through. So there's two Manly Seagulls in that back three. We go into the centres now. Well, Matt Burton. He has had a marvellous season. Joseph Manu was in and around this. Joseph Manu, I think, is the best centre in the game. But obviously, Matt Burton, he's in one centre position, and then Olam in the other centre position. And it's quite intriguing to see this, because I think I brought it up last week that Olam wasn't even put in the finals race for the Dell EM centres, and there was a bit of an uproar. Cameron Munster obviously did something on social media and said, I don't mean to be biased, but how can Olam not be in the mix for Dell EM centre? So 24 hours later, there was a revision there, and it shouldn't come to this, but I agree. He had to be in the mix as Dell EM Centre of the Year, and I think he's been the most potent all-round centre in the game. We know he's aggressive, but I reckon he's added a bit more skill to his game, a bit more finesse, which I think with Olam, you don't really think skill, especially the Papua New Guineans, because they play the game so tough, but there's some very skillful Papua New Guinean players now, and it's about playing with light and shade, and that's what Olam has learned to do this year. He hits well. He hits like a Mack truck, and when you hit him, he still gets up. You can't rattle him. But even last week, I think, once again, just at the start of the year, just a couple of little passes went wayward, but I'll forgive Olam because he's had a wonderful season, and you can just tell the Melbourne Storm, he offers them so much when he plays the way that he plays. So well done to Craig Bellamy. Obviously, mate, there'll be people back home in Papua New Guinea being very excited because this bloke deserves to be the best centre of the year. There's no doubt he's the best centre of the year. Matt Burton, he's going to be good at the Bulldogs next year. All-round player, very skillful. The thing that people were saying also about Matt Burton was when he polled his Dell EM points, he played 5'8" and had played a little bit of fullback. So, was that fair? I think Matt Burton is obviously a pretty fair player. So well done to him. Then we go into the halves. Well, what do I say about the halves? These two players have been two of the best in the game for the last couple of years, and now the Dell EM Points Awards, one of these guys were a big chance of winning, but we always knew Tommy Turbo. He missed a few games, but these guys played so well. Obviously, Nathan Cleary and Cody Walker. Let's talk about Cleary. There were some really good halfbacks this year. Jerome Hughes played some really good football. Cherry Evans played some really good football. He was obviously in the mix for the Dell EM Award. But what Cleary brings to a side, he's been injured for a little bit of the season, but he missed the last Origin as well. But what he brings confidence, he brings stability, but he also brings leadership. And that's what the Panthers have needed in the last couple of weeks. And he's been the catalyst for them obviously winning those tight games. His goal kicking hasn't been as good as it has been in the past, but just his composure. And look, I'm like everyone else. When he made that tackle, I'm going, oh, please, mate, you can't suspend him over that because he got him past the horizontal just, but I reckon there's another person to tackle, so right result. But if you have a look at his skill set, he puts the little short kicks in, he puts those long grubber kicks in that dribble back that gives players an opportunity to sort of, even when the ball's bouncing out, they can knock it back in. I think Momorowski did it a couple of weeks ago. It was a really good play, but that was a skill. That's hours on end of just practicing that. And also his defence. He's rock solid. And Cody Walker. What do I say about Cody Walker? This guy is just majestic. I love the way that he plays. Just his skill set. 5'8", short ball, long ball. He chimes in anywhere, but he also plays with aggression too. So he gets in your face. And I think sometimes the opposition try to get in his face to put him off his game because you got to. So obviously in the grand final, South, he's going to be one of their linchpins or their big key men if they're going to win the grand final because Adam Reynolds at the moment, he's got a groin injury, but Cody Walker, I think he's going to sign a couple more years with South Sydney, but he could have a grand final medal come this weekend. His try assists were like next level. I think the closest to him was, Tommy Turbo or Cherry Evans, but he was head and shoulders above anyone else because you couldn't stop him because he didn't know what he was doing. He just plays what he sees. You talk about eyes up football and play about skill set. The Indigenous boys, the way that they play sometimes, it's great to watch. And Cody Walker has been a breath of fresh air this year. I love the way that he played. In the back row, I love these two. They've been really good. Papali'i, he came from the Warriors last year. Really good edge back row. Played in the front row, can play a bit of lock, but he got fitter this year. And once he got fitter, he's not the biggest back rower, but his aggression was really good. And that's what brought a lot to the Parramatta side. They played him off the bench later in the season because he wasn't used to playing week in, week out grind because at the Warriors, they didn't use him that way. But I think it was a great move for the Eels, and I think he's been their best player this season. I know we talk about guys like Reid Marnie, Mitch Moses and that, but this guy, Papali'i, he was an absolute beast this year. Talking about beast, this guy on the other edge, mate, kick out on the left centre. The left centre, he'd love having Kikau inside him. We saw it last week. The great hands, soft hands to To'o, to the left hand there, and To'o just scores. And Kikau, he's a bloke who's 115 kilos. Just his finesse, the way that he does it, he can play fast and can play slow. But I reckon you've got to start with Kikau. He's had a really good season. We know he can score tries. His footwork is like any outside back. I've seen him take off. So when he's at his fittest, and at the moment, I think he's carrying that knee a little bit. So that knee is troubling him a little bit. So I don't know whether they're trying to nurse him through it, but Kikau has had a wonderful season. I know all the people back down in Fiji would be loving, not just Fiji, all the Pacific Islands. So we're seeing a lot of the Pacific Island boys come through, in the NRL because at that grassroots level, they've implemented that. Obviously, the Pacific nations have got their teams up and running. So hopefully international football turns it on next year, and we get to see Billy Kikau play for Fiji. Bulla. And well done to Isaiah Yeo. Isaiah Yeo, it's probably been his best season. He's obviously an origin player. He's captain courageous. The way that he leads the team around, obviously him and Nathan Cleary. But just his skill, just the way that he plays. He can play direct. He can skip through a line. His mobility for a big man and his toughness, that's what I think people respect about him. That's what players respect about him. That's why he's so hard to handle. I thought Cam Murray and Jake Trbojevic were thereabouts. Jake probably didn't have his best season, but Cam Murray, people go, Cam Murray's unlucky. I agree, Cam Murray's unlucky. But if you look back on it, Isaiah Yeo, he has been leading from the front from the whole time. So well done to Isaiah Yeo. Really good year, and who knows, could be a premiership ring this weekend. And the front row. Well, how can you not love the front rowers? James Fisher-Harris, the big Kiwi prop, he's been really good. But the back end of the season, he's either been a bit tired or because he went home to see his bub, he got out of the bubble and then he had to go back. They gave him a couple of weeks off, and that's why they brought Tavita Pangai Jr. is to give James Fisher-Harris a bit of a rest. But Fisher-Harris was back to his best last week. He was ripping into the Melbourne Storm pack, but just the way that he carries the ball, you want your big alpha male. He's the man. He's the man that's going to get you through. So when he stands up like he has most of the season, Penrith have had some confidence. So you got him. And then on the other side, you got a guy called Payne Haas. Well, I think Payne Haas won his 4th Broncos Player of the Year. They're hard to win those Broncos Players of the Year. I only won one, but I'm in illustrious company there. So well done to Payne Haas. I think he's won 4 now, 4 on the trot. So Payne Haas, his energy is so good. The way that he carries the ball, strong, but he needs support. So I think at the moment, they've offered him a new deal at the Broncos, but he's not touching it at the moment. I think he wants to see what the Broncos will bring to him this year, and other players have got to help him because it can't be a one-man band. And that's what it's been like for Payne Haas the last couple of years at the Broncos. And then one of my favourite players to watch, mate, you talk about scallywags, you talk about players who play with energy, talk about players that you love watching, Brandon Smith. He's one of those guys, he leaves nothing in the tank. Obviously, people can talk about Harry Grant, Damien Cook, but Brandon Smith, just the way he plays, he's built like a block of cheese. I think Andrew Johns named him cheese for a reason. The way that he's built, and he's the centre of gravity and that, and the way that he plays, he's very skillful. Mate, he comes out, he takes them on, he doesn't fear anyone, goes for the big hits, but also his energy, it's infectious. Melbourne missed him last year, but consistently this year, I think he's been the best 9 in the game. Obviously, Damien Cook's played some pretty good football. And for me, Harry Grant has been very good. And I think one of those number 9s are going to have to move to another team because I think Harry Grant is a starting number 9. So well done to the boys for Team of the Year. There's obviously some very talented players this year. And it was wonderful to watch. And, thanks, boys, for keeping the season alive. And we love your work. Well, welcome to the grand final preview, and I cannot wait. We have been doing this week in, week out for the last 29 weeks or whatever. I just can't wait. This is what it's all about. Rugby league, we started in round 1, and there's only 2 teams standing, and I'm going to let you know who's going to hold up the trophy. That's right, I'm going to take you through this process, who I think is going to be the premiers for 2021. We know it's been a crappy year because of COVID, but you know what? We've had our rugby league. Let's get into it. Okay, at the Panthers, mate, have a look at the back there. Dylan Edwards, the way that he plays. Really good energy. Last week, obviously, under that high ball, he just gets a little bit nervous sometimes, but still, he did a good job the week before. Obviously, he dropped a high ball. But once again, Blake Taaffe, the young and the experienced campaigner. So, 2 totally different fullbacks. And what I think Dylan Edwards does to the Panthers, he composes a team. He doesn't have pure acceleration. He doesn't have the double cutout pass at the back. He doesn't have that, that massive fend. But what he does is tradesman-like. So he complements this team. And then his opposition player, Blake Taaffe. Well, let's just say, he's just a bundle of energy. I've never seen a young kid like this, 7 games in, with so much confidence, step up in finals, kick goals, score tries, set up tries. So when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at Blake Taaffe, I'm looking at Dylan Edwards. Dylan Edwards, you'd have to think, is the experienced campaigner, and the Panthers should get the edge at the back there. But I'm going to tell you, it's pretty evenly matched there because Blake Taaffe, what I like about Blake Taaffe too, I think he's got old school values. I think his granddad or his uncle played a bit of first grade rugby league. And even next year, Jason Demetro, the coach, even admitted that he is probably a prime player to take Adam Reynolds' position because he played a lot of halves through the 20s and stuff. I think he's a premiership winning 20s half. So this kid is not phased. So for Adam Reynolds to have a groin injury, for all those players like Dane Gagai and all those players to be playing the experienced players, and then all of a sudden Blake Taaffe gets the kicking duties, that means Wayne Bennett has got confidence in him. So well done to the Bunnies there. This young kid, he's a super talent, but also Dylan Edwards. He's going to be able to show the young bull what he can do. And then we go to the wingers. Well, the wingers, Stephen Crichton, we saw what he did last week. Crichton up against Alex Johnston. 2 absolute try-scoring freaks. Stephen Crichton can score from anywhere, but we see that he likes playing in the centres, and last week, it's actually different for him playing on the wing because when he plays on the wing sometimes, he doesn't combine with his centre because I think it's not second nature to him. It's a different skill set playing on the wing, but I'm sure he will do a good job there. His carries are really good. He gets in between players. He's not the strongest player, but obviously with his build, he reminds me of a young Israel Folau. He just knows how to get in the air, score tries, and he knows how to beat players, and that's a very good skill to have. So when that defence is tied, he's your man. And now look at Alex Johnston. Well, Alex Johnston, I think he broke that record last week. Just 29 or 30 tries. I think 29 tries. Just knows how to score tries. Like he's just a pure finisher. Wayne Bennett had the option of putting him back to fullback, but if you put him back to fullback, he doesn't play his best because he doesn't carry the ball. Because Alex Johnston is quick. He's quick on the wing. He knows how to hold the width. He knows when to drop underneath, and he knows how to bring us to scoot the ball out of out of the tough, demanding areas when the hit-ups need to be taken. We look at the centres here. Really good battle here. Dane Gagai versus Momorowski. Momorowski, very good all-round player, but I think I said it before. Momorowski's problem is sometimes he just doesn't know when to let that ball go. Sometimes he'll just dummy and go himself, and then other times he will pass it when he probably should be holding it. He's up against Dane Gagai. Dane Gagai, I think this is Dane Gagai's first. He's won the Wally Lewis medal, he's won Origin Series, but he's never made it to a grand final. And to see Dane Gagai, he's from my hometown, Mackay Serena, to see how happy he was to make the grand final. If he's making the grand final, he wants to win. He wants to put this up there with his Australian jersey, and obviously, his Queensland wins. So I think they're a big chance, South here. Mate, really handy back line there, and that's been a benefit to South too. Their backs don't make too many mistakes. They're exciting. Once they get into their rhythm, especially down that left-hand edge, they're very hard to beat. And then we go on to the wings there. Brian To'o, Oh, sorry. And then actually Campbell Graham and Matt Burton actually back in the centres there. The other two centres, Matt Burton, mate, what a marvellous year for him. Dally M Centre of the Year along with Justin Olam. Mate, really good job there. And the way that he plays is your typical country boy. I think he's a boy from Dubbo. He's your typical country sort of, he can play anywhere from lock to fullback, and he just knows how to play football. And when I say that, there's some players that are just suited to a position. But you can throw him into 5'8", you can throw him into fullback, into centre, and he'll do a job for you, Matt Burton. He just has this uncanny ability to beat players and to score tries, and also, you know, to set them up. So, very handy player to have, and he's had a great year. The Bulldogs have got an absolute good in there. He's up against Campbell Graham. Freddie Fittler's got a massive rap on this young kid. This kid could play Origin the next probably 1 to 2 years. He's been in and around that sort of 19-man setup there, State of Origin. Campbell Graham, he's got a big job. He's got to shut down Matt Burton. If South's got to win, I think Campbell Graham has got to shut down Matt Burton. That's going to be a real good battle there, and that's worth the price of admission alone. Then we go to the other wings. Have a look at this. Brian To'o and that man, Jackson Paulo. Jackson Paulo, for a young player, nothing phases him at the moment. He's confident, takes the strong carries. We know he can score a try, but also he goes looking for work. So in these games, he's taking his game on the level. Sometimes semi-finals football and sudden death football, young players can go back into their shells, but the ones who stand up, who want the ball, who want the big moments, they're the ones who you know want that premiership ring. So he's not fazed by this at the moment. So young Taff and young Paulo, for young players, they give South confidence. And I love the way they're playing. Brian To'o. To'o is not 100% at the moment. I've got no doubt his ankle, it's about 85 to 90%. But even last week, he had 20 carries, scored one try and had 200 plus hit-ups, 200 metres. So, it just goes to show the pedigree of what Brian To'o can do. And then this is what I'm waiting for. Doesn't get any better than this. I said last week, your halves decide where the game's won and lost. We saw that last week with Nathan Cleary and obviously the Melbourne Storm. The harder Melbourne tried, the harder it got for them because Penrith's defence just kept absolutely bashing them. It was a war of attrition there for a long time. 27 degrees at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a different skill for both teams to have because they've been playing night games because of the AFL Grand Final, and Panthers handle it better. So we look at that. Nathan Cleary against Adam Reynolds. Well, Adam Reynolds, he's not going to be 100%. He's obviously got the groin, so he mightn't be kicking this week. So we'll see how he goes, and if that happens, Cody Walker take kicking responsibilities. But Nathan Cleary is a class act. I know some people are saying he's very lucky to be there with the tackle, but Nathan Cleary deserves to be here. His shoulder's not 100%, so he'll get a lot of traffic running his way. But for me, they'll probably cancel each other out here. Who's got the best back line for me? I think, personally, the Bunnies just edge them in the back line, especially the way they're playing in their attack. Gordon Tallis once said to me, you know what, if the backs didn't have the forwards, we wouldn't win grand finals. Well, you know what, I reckon that's pretty true, because I know we all got our jobs in football, but in the forward pack, this is where the gladiators are. This is where it's won and lost. The front rowers, they will set the standard. Moses Leota, and James Fisher-Harris, well done James Fisher-Harris, Dally M front row of the year, taking on Tavita Totola and Mark Nicholas. So you look at that front row, they're going toe-to-toe here. 4 very good front rowers, 4 front rowers who are in form. For me, I just think the Panthers have got the edge in the front row at the moment. Because of Fisher-Harris and obviously Leota, he's had a bit of a calf strain the last couple of weeks. He was out and then he was in and then he's back in now. Obviously, Tavita Pangai Jr. has been ruled out with his knee. So I reckon that'll just tip the Panthers. I think in the front row there, they've got the edge there. Mark Nicholas, he's done a really good job, and young Totola playing some really good football. They get a lot of minutes out of those blokes, but it's their rotation it's going to be the key. That's what South have been using really well, and that's what Wayne Bennett's so good. He's got Jai Arrow and Tom Burgess on the bench, and that certainly helps. But, we talk about the halves and what they can do in the game. This is what I'm excited about. The little Fijian man, that man, Api Coruscant. Coruscant last week, he started picking Melbourne to pieces in that second half. He started running, dummying, going, saw one marker, and just sort of went out. And he sort of upped the tempo there. So that spine is going to be so important to who wins this grand final. So Api Coruscant, he's not going to be faced by Damien Cook. Obviously, he's already won a premiership with South back in 2014. So Api now gets a chance to redeem himself after last year. It wasn't just his fault, but Panthers were off last year and they got smashed through the forwards. James Fisher-Harris, obviously, he'll help him out there. And look at the back row here. Can I just say this? As a commentator and as a person who loves football, mate, you can't get any more skillful back rowers than this. They all offer something different, some of the complete package. Obviously, Kickow is the complete package. Obviously, Dell, second rower of the year, or one of them. Well done to Kickow. We know what he brings on that left edge. He's got that wonderful skills where he can just flick it at the back. He can just, catch and pass. He goes in for the big hits too. He's 112, 115 kilos. He's an absolute machine. So Kickow up against Colin Matangi, another young Island boy who's playing some really good football, Colin Matangi. And the way that he plays, he's just strong, so he's not going to let him get away with too much. Then we've got Kurt Capewell, who's an Origin Queensland player, up against Jaden Sewer. He's going to Dragons next year. Jaden Sewer leaves nothing in the bank. Jaden Sewer, he scares me sometimes. He's scary. He's a scary human, Jaden Sewer. So he's up against Kurt Capewell. So whoever wins that battle is going to go a long way for them to win in this game. And then in the back row, Isaiah Yeo and Cam Murray. Two of the best 13s the game has seen for a long time, but also two absolute gentlemen. Where I'm going to be leaning towards, I'm going to lean towards the forward pack of South here, the back row. I just think that back row, I think it edges out the Panthers' back row. It's a tough one, but I just like the way that they're playing at the moment. Their defence is good, and they just want to hurt teams at the moment, South, and that's what Wayne Bennett has given them the mission to go and hurt the other team. Well, look, I don't know if you believe in fairy tales, but if you do, you're a South man. They're number 14, Benji Marshall. Mate, I cannot believe this. Benji Marshall has not played a grand final since 2005. We remember the flick pass, Pat Richards. Anyway, he's up against Tyrone May, both very good utilities, both bringing something to the game at the moment. So it'll depend on how they'll be used. But I know Benji, he's playing his best football, could go another year. And look at this back row. Look at the bench. Jacob Host, Thomas Burgess, and Jai Arrow. That's a really classy bench. And I reckon whenever those players have come on, they've gone to the next level. Scott Sorensen, Spencer Leniu, and Liam Martin. So, mate, this is pretty even. Both benches are going to be bringing something. It depends the rotation, and I hate to say it, we saw what happened last week with the two HIA. If you get the head knocks, this is a war of attrition. This is like nothing. There's going to be nothing left in the bank here. So they're going to go as hard as they can, and it's going to be the last team standing. So this has got everything in it. This has got all the makings of a blockbuster. I can't wait. This is NRL Grand Final 2021 at its absolute best. And I'm leaning towards the Bunnies at the moment. So we'll check the markets out very soon. Well, hey guys, we've had a great year, but this is the Grand Final time. And I'm going to give you every opportunity to pick the Grand Final winner. That's right, to pick the champs. And I've got some stats here from the man, Dave Middleton. Because, mate, I can find stats, but not like Dave Middleton. I want you to have a listen to this carefully. The Panthers have won 5 of their past 6 games against the Rabbitohs. Mate, that's a really good record. Rabbitohs coach Wayne Bennett has the chance to become the first coach to win a premiership with 3 clubs. That is magnificent. The Panthers have had 13 players with grand final experience compared with 4 from the Rabbitohs. South winger Alex Johnston, we know he's had a great year, requires 1 try to break the Rabbitohs season try scoring record. Well done to Alex Johnston. He's had a marvellous season. And coach Ivan Cleary and his son Nathan are aiming to become the second father and son combination to win a grand final. And yep, that's right. And if you know who the first father and son combination was, that's in 2003 grand final when Martin Lang and his dad John Lang won the grand final when the Panthers beat the Roosters. So we go from that and we go to the prices. So if you're confident enough, the Panthers are $1.68. They're the favourites. Souths are $2.25. At the moment, I think the Panthers, I think this is more evenly matched than that. I just think the way that Souths are played, I think they both should be $1.90, but obviously the money's gone from the Panthers. Obviously, of course, they had the harder draw and they beat the Melbourne Storm, so the punters have taken up confidence with that. But where I'm going, I look at Souths here. Souths 1-12. I think it's going to be a tight one. Souths 1-12, $3.30. I reckon that's a great price, and I reckon Souths are going to be a premiers for 2021. That's Wendell Saylor. That's Big Dell Tips for PNGBet. Thanks for joining us for 2021 Big Dell's Tips for PNGBet.com. We have absolutely loved your company. We've loved having a bet every week. Obviously, you guys have beaten me in certain tips and that. So we'll just see who the best tipster is by the end of this grand final. But I just want to thank you guys. You've been great. And hopefully I'll be up your way and see you soon when the borders open up. Yeah, the big Dell.